The text arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my corner office on the 42nd floor. Emma, we need to talk about the wedding. I knew what was coming. My younger sister Melissa had been dropping hints for weeks. Comments about keeping things elegant, and making sure everything flows perfectly, and not wanting any awkwardness with Trevor's family. The next message came through before I could respond. Trevor and I talked. His family is, well, they're important people. Corporate executives, attorneys, doctors. We can't have you there looking like you just rolled out of wherever you work. It would embarrass us. You understand, right? I stared at the screen. My assistant knocked softly on my door, holding the Forbes magazine with my face on the cover. The final proof before it went to print next week. I waved her away gently. Another text. Dad agrees with me. He said it's probably for the best. I typed one word. Understood. Then I set my phone face down on my desk and returned to the acquisition documents that would close our $340 million deal by Friday. Growing up, Melissa was the golden child. Straight A's without trying, captain of the debate team, crowned homecoming queen junior year. She had that effortless charm that made adults love her and peers want to be near her. Our parents showcased her like a trophy at every family gathering. I was the weird one who spent too much time with computers. Who preferred coding in my room to attending Dad's elaborate Sunday dinners. Who asked too many questions about why things worked the way they did instead of just accepting them. Why can't you be more like your sister? Mom asked at least once a week throughout high school. Melissa knows how to present herself. She understands what matters. What mattered apparently was appearance, status, saying the right things to the right people. I never mastered those skills and eventually I stopped trying. I went to state school on a partial scholarship while Melissa got a free ride to a prestigious private university Dad loved to mention at his golf club. I studied computer science and spent my nights building apps and websites for local businesses to pay my remaining tuition. Melissa studied communications and spent her nights at sorority formals. After graduation, I took a job as a junior developer at a mid-sized tech firm. The pay was modest, the hours were long, but I was learning. Melissa moved back home and worked part-time at a friend's boutique while she figured things out. But she was still the star. Still the one Dad bragged about. Melissa has such refined taste, he'd tell his business associates. She's taking her time finding the right opportunity. Not rushing into anything beneath her potential. When I mentioned a promotion to senior developer, Dad nodded absently and changed the subject to Melissa's new boyfriend. Some guy named Trevor from a very well-connected family. That was 3 years ago. What my family didn't know, what I'd deliberately never told them, was that 2 years ago, I'd left that developer position to launch my own company. It started small. A SaaS platform for supply chain optimization that I'd built on nights and weekends. 1 client became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became a pitch to venture capitalists who saw what I saw. Traditional logistics was broken and technology could fix it. We secured $8 million in Series A funding. Then $35 million in Series B. Then we started acquiring competitors. I kept my life meticulously separated. My family thought I still worked as a computer person at some generic tech company. They never asked for details and I never offered them. I drove a modest Honda to family dinners. Wore simple clothes from department stores. Rented a nice but unimpressive apartment in a normal neighborhood. Meanwhile, my company, Logistech Solutions, was being profiled in trade publications. I was speaking at industry conferences. We'd just been valued at $340 million in our latest funding round, and I owned 62% of it. I wasn't hiding out of shame. I was protecting something precious. Building something real without the toxicity of people who'd spent years telling me I wasn't good enough. Every dismissive comment, every comparison to my successful sister, every time Dad forgot to ask about my life, it all became fuel. My company was headquartered in the same city, just 12 miles from my parents' house. But they'd never visited. Never asked for the address. Never wondered why I was always busy during business hours. I hired the best people I could find. Brilliant engineers who'd been overlooked at larger firms. Operations specialists who understood the unglamorous work of actually making things function. My executive team was small but lethal. Every one of them someone who'd been underestimated and had something to prove. My CFO, Marcus Rivera, had been rejected by his own father for choosing finance over the family restaurant business. My head of operations, Jennifer Park, had been told she was too nice to make it in corporate America. My VP of sales, David Chin, had been passed over for promotion 17 times at his previous company. We were a company of people who'd been dismissed. And we were winning. The wedding was set for Saturday, 6 days after Melissa's text. I didn't respond further and she didn't follow up. As far as my family knew, I'd accepted my exclusion quietly, the way I always accepted their boundaries. Friday afternoon, David knocked on my office door with his characteristic broad smile. "Boss, you ready for tomorrow?" "Ready as I'll ever be," I said. David had been the one to connect me with Trevor's company 6 months ago, though he didn't know about my family connection at first. Trevor worked for Sanderson and Cole, a mid-sized logistics firm that we'd identified as an ideal acquisition target. Their client list was impressive, but their technology was 15 years behind, and they were hemorrhaging market share. We'd spent months in quiet negotiations. Trevor had been our primary contact on their side, a VP of operations who'd been surprisingly resistant to modernization. He'd fought every proposed change, insisted their old systems were proven, and generally made the acquisition process more difficult than it needed to be. But the numbers didn't lie. Sanderson and Cole was failing and their board knew it. 3 weeks ago they'd accepted our acquisition offer. The deal would close Monday morning, pending final signatures. Trevor didn't know that the CEO of the company acquiring his firm was his future sister-in-law, the one who wasn't invited to his wedding because she'd embarrassed them. David, however, had figured it out 2 days ago when he saw Melissa's photo on my desk. A picture from years ago that I kept mostly out of habit. "That's Trevor's fiancée," he'd said, stunned. "Yes," I'd replied simply. "And you're not going to the wedding?" "I wasn't invited." David's face had gone through several expressions before settling on barely contained rage. "Boss, you're better than this whole family combined. Trevor spent 6 months fighting every improvement we suggested, and now he's about to find out who's actually been in charge." I'd smiled. "He'll find out when he needs to find out. Which is tomorrow night. At the reception." David was my best man for a reason. He understood timing. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. I spent the morning reviewing documents, then met with my attorney to finalize some patent applications. Around 3 p.m. I returned to my penthouse, the one my family had never seen, and began getting ready. My phone buzzed with texts from the family group chat I'd been excluded from, but someone had forgotten to remove me. Photos of Melissa in her dress. Dad beaming in his tuxedo. Mom crying happy tears. The church decorated with white roses and gold accents. "Trevor's family is so impressive," Mom had texted. 3 doctors, 2 attorneys, and his uncle is a state senator. "We are so lucky Melissa found him." I put my phone away and focused on getting ready. The dress I'd chosen was elegant but understated, deep emerald green, perfectly tailored, expensive but not showy. Hair professionally styled but simple. Minimal jewelry. I looked successful but not ostentatious. Confident but not threatening. At 6 p.m. my driver arrived. Not the Honda I drove to family dinners, but the black Mercedes I actually owned. We headed to the Grandview estate, the reception venue Melissa had been bragging about for months. I'd purposely timed my arrival for after the ceremony but before dinner. The cocktail hour was in full swing when I entered. I checked in with the event coordinator, who escorted me to a table near the front. Table 3, reserved for company executives. Nobody recognized me. I was just another guest in a sea of well-dressed people. I spotted my family across the room. Dad in his tuxedo holding court with Trevor's uncle the senator. Mom in a lavender gown, laughing at something Trevor's mother said. Melissa radiant in her wedding dress, Trevor beside her looking proud. My brother Ryan was there too, 19 years old and already adopting Dad's mannerisms. He stood with a group of Trevor's groomsmen, trying to fit in with men 5 years older. I collected a glass of champagne and found my seat. David appeared beside me, impeccable in his tuxedo. As Trevor's colleague and our inside contact during the acquisition, he'd been invited to the wedding. What Trevor didn't know was that David had been working for me the entire time. "They have no idea," David whispered. "Not yet," I replied. Jennifer arrived next, stunning in a navy gown. She'd been invited as Trevor's operations consultant. He'd worked with her throughout the acquisition without realizing she reported to me. Marcus came third, equally oblivious to Trevor that his financial advisor was actually my CFO. We sat at table 3, sipping champagne, making small talk with Trevor's genuine colleagues who had no idea what was about to happen. Across the room, I watched Melissa laugh at something Dad said. She looked happy, genuinely happy. Part of me, a small part, felt sad for what was about to happen. But then I remembered the text, "You'll embarrass us." I remembered every time Dad forgot my name when introducing his children to colleagues. Every time Mom sighed when I showed up to dinner in jeans instead of a dress. Every time Melissa rolled her eyes when I talked about my work. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here because after years of being invisible to them, they were about to discover I'd been in the room the whole time. Dinner was served. Prime rib, roasted vegetables, some kind of fancy potato dish. I barely tasted it. My attention was on the head table, where Melissa kept glancing around the room with satisfaction. This was her moment. Her perfect day. Trevor looked confident beside her, playing the part of successful husband. He'd worn that same confidence in our acquisition meetings when he'd insisted his company didn't need to change. When he'd patronizingly explained logistics to Jennifer, who had 15 years more experience than him. When he'd questioned our financial projections to Marcus, who'd worked at Goldman Sachs before joining my team. He had no idea that Monday morning he'd be reporting to those same people. Coffee was served. The DJ announced it was time for toasts. Ryan went first, delivering a rambling speech about growing up with Melissa and how happy he was she'd found Trevor. It was sweet in that oblivious way teenagers are sweet. Dad went second, his voice thick with emotion. "My daughter deserves the best," he said, looking at Trevor. "And son, you come from a family that represents everything we admire. Success, education, class. You'll take good care of our girl." I watched Trevor nod, accepting this assessment of his worthiness. Mom went third, crying through her words about Melissa's beauty and grace and bright future. Then the DJ announced, "And now the best man, David Chin." David stood and I felt my heart rate increase. This was it. David walked to the microphone with his champagne glass, comfortable in front of a crowd. He'd given 100 presentations to investors. This was just another performance. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice warm. "For those who don't know me, I'm David Chin. I've had the privilege of working closely with Trevor over the past 6 months during a major transition at his company." Trevor smiled, probably thinking David was about to praise his leadership during the acquisition. "Trevor and I spent a lot of time together," David continued. "Long meetings about strategy, operations, the future of logistics in a changing market. And I got to know him pretty well." Melissa beamed at Trevor. Dad nodded approvingly. "But what Trevor doesn't know," David said, his tone shifting slightly, "is that the entire time we were working together I was actually reporting to someone else. Someone who was evaluating whether Trevor had the vision and adaptability needed for the future." The room went quiet. Trevor's smile faltered. "You see, 6 months ago Trevor's company, Sanderson & Cole, entered into acquisition negotiations with Logistech Solutions. Maybe some of you have heard of them. We've been in the news lately." A few people nodded. I saw Trevor's uncle pull out his phone, probably Googling. "Logistech is acquiring companies across the country," David continued, "bringing innovation to an outdated industry. And I have the incredible privilege of working for the most brilliant, strategic visionary leader I've ever met." He paused, letting the tension build. "My boss is someone who built a company from nothing. Who saw opportunities everyone else missed. Who treats employees like humans instead of resources. Who's been profiled in Forbes, Business Insider and Tech Innovator magazine. Who just closed a $340 million Series C funding round." I could see people whispering, trying to figure out where this was going. "My boss is your new brother-in-law," David said, turning to look directly at Melissa. "She's your sister." He raised his glass toward me. "Everyone, please join me in acknowledging the CEO of Logistech Solutions, Emma Mitchell." The room exploded into chaos. Melissa's face went from confusion to recognition to absolute horror in about 3 seconds. Her champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Dad stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Trevor's face cycled through confusion, disbelief. and then a sick understanding as he realized what this meant. His company had been acquired. By me. His embarrassing future sister-in-law who wasn't worthy of attending his wedding. His colleagues at table 3, the ones who'd been making small talk with me all evening, were staring in shock. Jennifer gave them a little wave. Marcus smirked into his champagne. David continued speaking, his voice cutting through the noise. Emma doesn't usually attend acquisitions personally, but this one was special. Trevor, you spent 6 months fighting every modernization proposal. Every technological upgrade. Every efficiency improvement. You told Jennifer she didn't understand how real logistics worked. You questioned Marcus's financial projections despite his 15 years at Goldman. You insisted your outdated systems were superior. Trevor had gone pale. And on Monday morning, David said cheerfully, you'll report directly to Jennifer as part of the new operations structure. Marcus will be restructuring your entire financial department. And Emma will decide whether your position is redundant in the new organization. He raised his glass higher. To the bride and groom. May your marriage be more successful than Trevor's resistance to progress. Half the room didn't know whether to laugh or gasp. Trevor's colleagues from Sanderson and Cole were staring at their plates. His family members were frantically Googling my name, their faces going pale as the search results loaded. I stood slowly, smoothing my dress. Every eye in the room turned to me. I walked to the microphone. David handed it to me with a slight smile, then returned to his seat. Thank you, David, I said calmly. I apologize for the disruption. This isn't how I imagined attending Melissa's wedding. My voice was steady. Professional. The same voice I used in board meetings. Actually, I wasn't imagining attending at all, I continued. Because 6 days ago, I received a text from my sister telling me not to come. That I would embarrass her. That Trevor's family was too important to risk having me here. I looked at Melissa. He was crying now, mascara running. Dad agreed with her. He said it was probably for the best. Dad's face was red. He looked like he wanted to speak but couldn't find words. And honestly, I understood. You've spent my entire life telling me I wasn't good enough. That I should be more like Melissa. That I was wasting my potential with computers. That I didn't know how to present myself properly. Mom was crying now too. So I stopped trying to prove myself to you. I built something real instead. Something that didn't need your approval to exist. I turned to Trevor. Trevor, you and I spent 6 months in meetings. You fought every suggestion my team made. You were condescending to Jennifer, dismissive of Marcus, and resistant to every attempt at innovation. You clung to outdated systems because admitting they needed to change would mean admitting you'd been wrong. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. On Monday morning, Sanderson and Cole officially becomes a Logistech subsidiary. Your entire executive team will be restructured. Your systems will be modernized. And you'll either adapt or you'll be replaced. I let that sink in. But tonight isn't about business, I said, my tone softening slightly. Tonight is Melissa's wedding day. And despite everything, she's my sister. I raised my glass. To my sister. I hope your marriage brings you happiness. I hope you find someone who values you not for what you look like or who your family is, but for who you actually are. I hope you never have to feel invisible in your own family. I took a sip of champagne. And I hope you never have to build something great while being told you're an embarrassment. I set the glass down and looked at my parents. David, Jennifer, Marcus, we should go. We have an early meeting Monday. My team stood immediately. We walked toward the exit together, leaving absolute silence in our wake. As we reached the door, Dad's voice finally broke through. Emma, wait. I paused but didn't turn around. You never told us. You never said anything about a company or money or... You never asked, I said simply. In 3 years you never once asked what I actually did. You assumed I was still some entry-level worker because that's what you wanted to believe. It was easier than admitting you might have been wrong about me. We're your family, Mom said, her voice breaking. I turned to look at them then. Really look at them. Dad in his expensive tuxedo that cost less than what I spent monthly on my developer team's training budget. Mom in her lavender gown from a boutique Melissa probably helped her choose. Melissa in her wedding dress, crying her perfect day destroyed. Ryan stood off to the side, looking confused and young. Family doesn't tell you you're an embarrassment, I said quietly. Family doesn't exclude you from important moments because you don't fit their image. Family doesn't spend years making you feel invisible and then act shocked when you become visible on your own terms. Emma, please, Melissa started. I'm not angry, I interrupted. I'm really not. I'm actually grateful. You taught me that approval from people who don't value you is worthless. You taught me that I'm capable of more than you ever imagined. You taught me that the only validation that matters comes from doing the work. I looked at Trevor. See you Monday, Trevor. Dress code is business casual. We're not big on formality. Then I walked out, my team behind me. The Mercedes was waiting. David, Jennifer, and Marcus climbed in with me and we drove in silence for several minutes. Finally, Jennifer spoke. Boss, that was the most professionally savage thing I've ever witnessed. Trevor's going to resign, Marcus predicted. He won't show up Monday. He'll show up, I said. His ego won't let him quit. He'll try to prove he can handle it. Can he? David asked. No, I said. But I'll give him 3 months to figure that out himself. If he adapts, great. If not, we'll transition him out with a good severance package. I'm not cruel. You're fair, Jennifer corrected. There's a difference. We drove to my favorite restaurant, a small Italian place in the arts district where nobody cared about status or appearances. We ordered wine and pasta and spent 2 hours talking about Monday's actual meeting, a potential acquisition in Portland that would expand our Pacific Northwest coverage. Around 11, David's phone started buzzing. Then Jennifer's. Then Marcus's. It's everywhere, David said, scrolling through his phone. Someone posted about what happened. It's trending on local Twitter. Tech CEO crashes sister's wedding. Bride uninvites sister who turns out to be millionaire boss. Wedding toast becomes corporate takeover announcement. That's not accurate, I said. I didn't crash. I was at my assigned seat. Marcus laughed so hard he nearly spilled his wine. My own phone had been buzzing for an hour. I finally looked at it. 47 missed calls from Mom. 33 from Dad. 62 text messages in the family group chat. 12 voicemails. I opened the family chat. It was pandemonium. Mom, Emma, please call us, we need to talk about this, please. Dad, call me immediately. Ryan, is Emma actually rich? Google says her company is worth like $300 million. Melissa, how could you do this to me on my wedding day? Aunt Sarah, I always knew Emma was special, why didn't anyone tell me she was successful? Uncle Mike, just Googled Logistech, holy shit, Emma is a CEO? Cousin Jennifer, wait, is this the same Emma we thought worked at like Best Buy or something? Various relatives chiming in with shock, confusion, demands for explanation. And then at the very bottom, one message from Melissa sent 20 minutes ago. Trevor won't talk to me. He locked himself in the bathroom. His family left early. Everyone is staring at me. You ruined everything. I stared at that message for a long time. Jennifer noticed. You okay, boss? Yeah, I said, setting my phone face down. I'm okay. But I wasn't sure if I believed it. Sunday morning, I woke up in my penthouse to 73 new messages and a trending hashtag. Hashtag wedding fee. Apparently someone had recorded David's entire toast and posted it online. The video had 2.3 million views. Comments ranged from, "This is the most satisfying thing I've ever seen," to, "That poor bride," to, "Why did the family treat her like that?" A reporter from Forbes had emailed asking for comment. So had Business Insider, TechCrunch, and 3 local news stations. My publicist was having a meltdown in my inbox. Emma, we need to get ahead of this story. Can we schedule a call? I ignored all of it and went for a run. When I returned, there was a car parked in front of my building. Dad's BMW. He was sitting in the lobby when I walked in, still in yesterday's tuxedo shirt and pants, looking like he hadn't slept. The concierge gave me an apologetic look. She knew not to let people up without permission, but she couldn't stop them from waiting in the public lobby. Emma, Dad said, standing immediately. Please. We need to talk. I considered walking past him to the elevator. Instead, I gestured to the seating area by the windows. We sat. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. Tired. Lost. I don't understand, he said finally. Why didn't you tell us? About the company, the money, any of it. Would you have believed me? I asked. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. If I'd told you 3 years ago that I was starting a company, what would you have said? He was quiet for a long moment. I probably would have said it was risky. That you should keep your stable job. You would have told me I was being unrealistic, I said. That I should be more practical. Like Melissa. Melissa. He trailed off. Melissa is devastated, I said. Her wedding is all over the internet. Her husband is probably questioning everything. His family thinks we're all crazy. And she blames me. She shouldn't, Dad said. We made this happen. By treating you the way we did. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from him. I've spent my entire adult life trying to earn your approval, I said. And I finally realized I never would. Not because I wasn't successful enough, but because you'd decided who I was when I was 16. The weird computer girl who didn't fit. And nothing I accomplished would change that image in your mind. That's not. Dad, you forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. You never asked about my job. You compared me to Melissa in every conversation. When I got promoted to senior developer, you changed the subject within 30 seconds to talk about Melissa's boyfriend. His face crumpled. I didn't realize. That's the problem. You didn't realize. None of you did. I was invisible until suddenly I was inconvenient. Until having me at a wedding might embarrass the golden child. Emma, I'm sorry. Your mother is sorry. We were wrong. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't fix years of being dismissed. It doesn't undo the damage of telling a child they're not good enough. It doesn't make up for missing my life because you were too focused on Melissa's. What can we do? He asked. How do we fix this? I looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the desperation there. The genuine regret. I don't know if you can, I said honestly. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just tired. Tired of wanting approval from people who don't see me. Tired of trying to fit into a family that made it clear I don't belong. You belong, he said urgently. You're our daughter. You're Melissa's sister. I'm the CEO of a $340 million company, I interrupted. I have 347 employees who depend on me. I have investors who trust me. I have a team who believes in what we're building. That's who I am now. Not the disappointing daughter. Not the weird sister. Me. Dad's hands were shaking. I'm proud of you. I should have said that yesterday. I should have said it years ago. But I'm saying it now. I'm proud of you, Emma. Thank you, I said. But I don't need it anymore. I built something real without your pride. And it turns out I'm okay with that. I stood up. I have work to do. There's a finalization meeting tomorrow morning for the Sanderson and Cole acquisition. Trevor will either show up or he won't. Either way, the company moves forward. Emma, wait. Tell Mom I'll call her when I'm ready, I said. Tell Melissa I'm sorry her day was ruined, but I'm not sorry for existing. And tell Ryan to call me if he ever wants to talk about college or careers or anything else. I'll always have time for him. I walked to the elevator. Behind me, Dad said quietly, I love you. I pressed the button for my floor. I know. I love you too. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. The doors closed. Monday morning arrived. I put on my favorite navy suit, pulled my hair into a professional bun, and drove to the office in my actual car. A Tesla Model S that I'd bought last year to celebrate our Series C funding. The office was buzzing. Everyone had seen the video. My assistant had fielded 63 media requests. Security had turned away 2 reporters trying to get in. Jennifer knocked on my door at 8:30. He's here. Trevor. In the lobby. Looking like he's about to face a firing squad. Send him up, I said. And get David and Marcus. Conference room B in 15 minutes. Trevor entered my office looking exhausted. His suit was expensive but wrinkled. His tie was slightly crooked. His eyes were red. Miss Mitchell, he said formally. Trevor. Sit. He sat. How was the rest of your wedding? I asked. He blinked. Are you serious? I'm genuinely asking. Did you and Melissa enjoy the rest of your reception after we left? The photographer left, he said flatly. Half the guests left. My parents left. Melissa cried for 3 hours. We went to the hotel suite and didn't speak to each other. Our honeymoon flight left yesterday afternoon. We didn't take it. So no, I didn't enjoy the rest of my wedding. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. And I meant it. Are you? His voice was bitter. You got what you wanted. You embarrassed us. Showed everyone how successful you are. Made me look like an idiot in front of everyone I know. That wasn't the goal, I said calmly. The goal was attending my sister's wedding. The goal was being present for a major life event. You and Melissa decided I wasn't worthy of that. David's toast was simply truthful. You could have told me, he said. During any of those meetings over 6 months, you could have mentioned you were related to my fiancé. Would it have changed anything? I asked. Would you have listened to Jennifer's recommendations if you'd known she reported to me? Would you have been less condescending if you'd known my net worth? He didn't answer. Trevor, you fought every improvement because your ego was tied to the old ways of doing things. Learning that I was Emma Mitchell CEO wouldn't have changed that. It would have just made you more defensive. So what happens now? He asked. You fire me? Make an example of me? That depends on you, I said. You have skills. You understand logistics. You have relationships with clients we need to maintain. But you're resistant to change, dismissive of expertise you don't understand, and more concerned with appearing right than being effective. I pulled out a folder. This is a performance improvement plan. You'll work directly with Jennifer for the next 3 months. You'll implement every system upgrade you fought against. You'll learn our platforms, our processes, our culture. If you can adapt, you'll have a role here as a senior director. Not VP, that position is being eliminated, with a good salary and benefits. I slid the folder across the desk. If you can't adapt, we'll part ways professionally. 6 months severance, good references help finding your next position. But you decide in the next 5 minutes whether you stay or go. He stared at the folder. Why are you offering this? He asked. After everything? Because I'm not vindictive, I said. I'm practical. You made mistakes based on ego and insecurity. That's fixable. If you're willing to do the work. He opened the folder. Read the first page. Then the second. This is actually fair, he said, surprised. I'm always fair, I said. That's the difference between me and people who lead through fear or favoritism. I'm fair. Melissa says you destroyed her wedding out of revenge. Melissa texted me that I would embarrass her, I said evenly. That my presence wasn't worthy of her special day. I showed up anyway because I'm her sister, and that matters to me even if it doesn't matter to her. What happened after that was a consequence of years of treating me like I was less than. Actions have consequences. That's not revenge. That's reality. Trevor was quiet for a long moment. I'll stay, he said finally. I'll do the work. I'll adapt. Good, I said. Jennifer is expecting you in conference room B in 8 minutes. Don't be late. He stood folder in hand and walked to the door. Trevor, I called. He turned. Take care of my sister. Whatever else has happened, she's still my family. And despite everything, I want her to be happy. His expression softened slightly. I'll try. That's all anyone can do. He left. I sat alone in my office for a moment, staring at the Forbes magazine on my credenza. My face on the cover. CEO of the Year, Innovation category. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Hey Emma. Can we talk sometime? About college and stuff? I'm thinking about computer science. I smiled and typed back. Absolutely. Dinner this week? My treat. Another buzz. Melissa, I don't know what to say to you. I thought for a long moment, then replied, you don't have to say anything. I hope you and Trevor figure things out. I really do. Third buzz. Mom, Sunday dinner next week? Please. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed, baby. I'll let you know. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was possibility. And for now that was enough. 3 months later, I sat in my office reviewing Jennifer's report on Trevor's progress. He'd adapted. Not perfectly, there were still moments of ego, still resistance to feedback. But he was trying. Actually trying. The Sanderson and Cole integration was complete. Revenue was up 23%. Client retention was at 94%. 5 employees from the old firm had transferred to other Logistech departments, including Trevor's former assistant, who was thriving in operations. My phone rang. We'd had dinner twice. Uncomfortable, stilted conversations where everyone tried too hard. Ryan had joined both times, which helped. He'd declared his computer science major last week, and Dad had actually seemed proud instead of disappointed. "Hi, Mom," I answered. "Emma, honey. How are you?" "Busy. Good, busy. I was wondering. Melissa and Trevor are having a small dinner Saturday. Just family. Would you come?" I stared out my office window at the city below. My city. The one I'd conquered quietly while my family looked the other way. "Will I embarrass her?" I asked. There was a long pause. "She'd like you to come. She asked me to call." "Did she?" "She's trying, Emma. We're all trying." I thought about the text that started everything. About years of being invisible. About the moment David raised his glass and made me visible in a way I'd never asked for. About the fact that despite everything, Melissa was still my sister. "I'll come," I said. "But I'm not pretending the past didn't happen." "No one's asking you to," Mom said quietly. "We just want to try moving forward." "Hey," I said. "I'll be there." I hung up and returned to Jennifer's report. There was work to do. There was always work to do. But maybe, there was room for family too. On my own terms this time. Finally,